I started astrophotography during the pandemic. I couldn't travel like most of us couldn't travel. And so I decided to pick up astrophotography. Now, I had been a landscape photographer for years, in fact, over 15 years, selling my artwork at art shows all up and down the East Coast and then here in Arizona. And so as a landscape photographer, I'm really familiar with using Photoshop, and Photoshop seems to be that one tool that we all fall back on when we start moving into astrophotography, and I know that I did, and I used Photoshop for all of my processing of my early pictures, probably in the first 2 years. It wasn't until later that I moved, or decided to move, to PixInsight. Now, PixInsight is very different from Photoshop, has a lot of the similar tools, but they're used slightly differently than they are in Photoshop, and PixInsight is a pretty complicated program to learn. In fact, I'm still learning it. I am in no way, shape, or form an expert. If you want an expert, you can go to folks like Adam Block. He has a great video series on learning PixInsight. I go to his site. I think I purchased his foundations course so that I can at least get myself started using PixInsight. So I don't know everything about PixInsight, and I'm probably sure that I use a lot of the tools incorrectly, but they work for the way that I use them, and I get the results that I get with the tools that I do use. I am Dave of Urban Astro, and welcome to my channel. Okay, let's get started. First thing I need is my glasses, and you see here that I've opened up PixInsight. Now, I have a set of process icons that I use every time that I process a narrowband image, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open those up, and to do that I'm just going to head over here and right mouse button click and come down to process icons and come here to load process icons. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on narrowband, and as you see I get all of my process icons here. Now, some of these are just processes that I've saved out so that I can reuse them instead of coming up here and searching through this process list. I can just come over here and double click and boom, there it is, or I can drag and drop it onto the image and it executes. And a lot of these are also scripts. All these that have the little green infinity signs, those are all pixel math scripts. So anyways, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through as I process Lot 31, which is the star cluster that's actually between the flaming star and the Tadpole Nebula. There's a little loose cluster there, and it's called Lot 31. In fact, you can kind of, I don't know if you can even see this on the screen, but there's a little cluster of stars right here. It's a loose cluster. But anyways, so what I have here is I got hydrogen alpha, oxygen 3, and sulfur 2. And these were taken back in 22. There were 3 different sessions. You can see here session 1, session 2, and session 3. Each session was probably about 8 hours. So combined, there's probably about 3.5 hours maybe. Or maybe, no, probably about 2 3/4 hours. Each night was dedicated to hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. So combined here, you're looking at about maybe not quite 8 hours of data for the hydrogen, oxygen, and sulfur. These images were taken with an SV Bony 503 80mm f7. scope, which had a focal length of 560 millimeters, and I was using, I believe it was SV Boney's narrowband filters, which had a 7 nanometer band pass, and you'll see that on the oxygen here when we look at the oxygen. So you can see I have a screen transfer function, that's what STF stands for, already over here, but instead of double clicking that up and then using the controls down here, I can just use the controls up here, and so that's what I'm going to do. So here's our first look at a sub. So here is sulfur. You can see that there were 3 different sessions because you can see that there were 3 different framings and we're slightly off. It looks like session 1, this frame here, was significantly off from session 2 and session 3. It could have been an issue with the rotator. I'm not really sure. Let's take a look at oxygen and see if we get the same thing. And yeah, we do. So at least we're consistent across. And here we go again. And yeah, we got the same thing here. Now, I generally try to use the hydrogen in order to do my cropping. And the first thing I always do is I always crop first. So that way I don't have any questions about the image, and all the processes, especially Graxpert, works with cropped images and not so well with uncropped images. So what I do here in this case is I just double click on dynamic crop. Again, these are the commonly used processes over here, so I don't have to go searching for them. And we'll come here to hydrogen and let's shrink this a little bit. And now what we're going to do is we're going to, I didn't want to move it, I want to adjust it. There we go. Let's bring that there. Let's, seem to have issues here today. There we go. We bring that up. And then we'll bring that over and bring this one over. And that should work. Now, cropping you're going to be very careful with, because in order to execute this crop, you just hit this green check mark. But if I hit this green check mark, I'd have to try to figure out what the crop is for the other 2, and you're not going to get it. Most likely you're not going to get it. So what you want to do is you want to save what the cropping here is so that you can apply it to the others. And to do that, you take this blue triangle and just drag and drop it onto the screen, and now it's called process number 38. So now we can go to any one of these 3. So let's go to this one, which is our oxygen, and just drop that on, and boom. And I think I have to do better cropping, so we may have to recrop this again. Boom. And then we'll execute that, and we'll get rid of this. We'll delete that. Now let's go ahead and take another look at H. So we reset this, and I think we're going to have to come down a little bit. Yeah, I didn't crop it quite enough. Now, for those of you who don't know, if you want to save process icons over here, put them over here for use, all that you have to do is take the little triangle, the blue triangle, drag and drop it onto the screen, and then what you do is you right mouse button click on the process icon itself, and you go here to set icon identifier, and here you can rename this thing. So we can call this crop demo, and now I can move this over here, and it's now available to me. Whenever I want to use that particular crop, I can just drag and drop it onto an image and it will do exactly that crop. And if you want to save it out so that you can use it on other images, save any process icons that you put over here, you just right mouse button click and go to process icons and go to save icons, and you see here I have a directory called PixInsight, and I save all of my process icons that way. You just save it, and then what will end up happening is, you saw me at the very beginning, when you want to use your process icons, you just go ahead and just load them up. So let me go ahead and delete that one because I don't need it. Okay, so now we are good. So here's hydrogen, here's oxygen, and here's sulfur. Now, one thing I did notice here in the oxygen, and you can probably see it, is that there are halos. They're pretty bad halos. And we're going to deal with those halos, and I'll show you how I deal with them. And it took me a while to figure this out. In fact, it took me about 1.5 years to figure this out, how to deal with these. But you can deal with these halos. You just got to be smarter than the halos, I guess. And in sulfur here, there's some halos here too. You can see a little bit of halo there. Very big stars. We'll take care of that too. So let's go ahead and let's start our processing by dealing here with the hydrogen. Hydrogen looks pretty decent. The stars look good. So my next step in my process is I go here to GraphXpert and I'm going to run it. Okay, it's done running, and what I have it set up. If you look at GraphXpert here, you can set it up. Well, let's go to the process here. Process, GraphXpert, where is it? Where are you? Oh, it's a script, that's why. Toolbox, script, toolbox, and then you go into GraphXpert, and you see here that I've got it set up for subtraction, and you can click here to show background model and then to replace the target view, so that way you get the target that has had GraphXpert applied to it. So that's how I've got this thing set up. And you can see here that it pulled out the background. You can see what this gradient looks like. And I just have it set up that way so I can see what the gradient looks like, so I can get a sense. Now, some people aren't too sure about GraphXpert. They're afraid that GraphXpert probably, with the AI functionality, that it may impact nebulosity that can be found in your image. And if so, you can use ABE, which is automatic background extractor, and that's what I was using before I used GraphXpert. And ABE is great when you got a lot of nebulosity like I have here. And then you can use DBE. DBE, where are we here? Dynamic background extraction. If you're dealing with things like star clusters and galaxies and things where you don't have a whole lot of nebulosity. And here in dynamic background extraction, you can actually put in the actual points that are used to determine what that background looks like. But GraphXpert makes it pretty safe, pretty simple, and generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with it. So now just go ahead and apply that to all of the others. Now the next thing that I'll run is I'll run Blur Exterminator. And I know that I've got halos here in my oxygen here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually open up Blur Exterminator. And here we are. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust halos. And what that does is that actually makes for tighter stars. So let me show you. I can go here. Let's go ahead and get a profile of the star, or preview of this star. So here's the star, and if we just drag and drop this onto that, it will run, and you can see that we got a tighter star. Now, the question that I have, and I'm going to undo it, is which direction do I want to go? I think going larger, yeah, so I wanted to keep it at that negative, so that's what I thought. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to delete that, and then we're just going to run this. We're going to run this on the blue, and we'll run this on sulfur. I just ran blur exterminator, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create copies of these, because I'm going to extract stars, and I'm going to create copies of these and rename them so that they'll work with my scripts. If you notice here, if I open up my script here for basic SHO, you see that I just use letters for each of the filters. So hydrogen becomes H, oxygen becomes O, and sulfur becomes S, and it just makes it quick and easy. So to do that, you just click and hold on to the label and drag it over, and you create a new copy. PixInsight calls it a clone. That's fine. I'm going to make this H. So there's H, and we'll just put H over here for right now. And then here's oxygen, and I'm going to make a copy of all the others. Okay, now I do this so that way if I have to go back because I've done something and I have to kind of revert and restart, it's just easier to come back here and just create new copies and move forward. So next comes Star Exterminator. And basically I just do the default settings and let it run, and I'll do this for all three. All right, now I noticed that the hydrogen is really clean. It looks drop dead gorgeous, clean. And I noticed that the sulfur also looked fairly clean. There's a few little areas here, you can see them here, where there were some halos. But I don't think that those are going to impact us too much if we don't stretch this too much. You can see a little bit right in through here. Partly I don't want to touch them because of nebulosity, because there is a fair amount of nebulosity in here, and I don't want to lose that or mess it up in any way. But oxygen's a different story. Oxygen has a lot of halos. You can see where the halos of all these stars were. And this is something that we're going to have to fix, and we need to fix it now rather than later. And to do that, it's pretty simple. We're going to come in here, and I probably should put this over there, but we probably are going to be looking at clone stamp. There we are. Okay. This is what I do when I have these kind of situations, and I usually make the radius 100. And let's bump this thing up, not too much. And what we're going to do is we are going to hit the control key in order to set a point, and then you come over and just clone the area. There you go. And as you can see, just wiping out all these. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it. Now there's one right here, and I'm not going to touch that because there's some nebulosity back there, and I want to be able to keep as much as that as I can. And I suspect that when I do, I'm going to do this in the Hubble color palette, by the way. So if I do this as basic SHO, I don't think I'm going to need to touch that. So in order to save what I just did, I now have to hit the green check mark, which is to execute that action. So, and there we go. So now that's oxygen fixed. Okay, now we're on to the fun part, and that is stretching. Now there's a lot of ways to stretch. There's arcsine stretch, there's just opening up STF and just dragging that onto histogram transform and then dragging that onto the image, so that way you can accept the stretch that the screen transfer function does. But I use a combination, or some folks will just, they use the generalized hyperbolic stretch. I use both the histogram transform and the generalized hyperbolic stretch. And I do the histogram transform to get the basic stretch, what in my mind is a basic stretch, and then I use the generalized hyperbolic stretch to get more fine-tuned stretching. And I'll show you what that looks like with hydrogen, and then I'll just quickly go ahead and stretch the other two and not talk you through those, but I'll talk you through the hydrogen. So the first thing I do here is I am going to kill the screen transfer function. So there we are. So there's H. And then I'm going to open up histogram transform, and I'm going to select hydrogen, H, and we're going to get a preview, a real-time preview window. And then I just start stretching away. And to stretch, as most of you probably know, is you just grab onto the midpoint here and you just drag it over. And I usually drag it over to the vicinity of the first faint line here. It's very, very faint. And usually when I'm stretching, I try to get my histogram somewhere near this line. And then, like I say, I'll go into the generalized hyperbolic stretch to finish the stretching process. You can already see there's a little bit of nebulosity there, and so I need to reset this, and then we go back and I bring it back down there to that point. Okay, now it's really blown out, but that's alright, you just need to reset it. And then we're going to change the black point here and move that up, and then move the midpoint a little bit more, and there we go. We're starting to get that looking good. Okay, and we need to do the black point again, and then move that. Let me bump that off a little bit. There we go. And then we're going to bring that there, and then we're going to move this right to there. Boom. And then we're going to, and you can see that I'm right over here by this first faint quadrant line here. So this thing is in 4 quadrants. So my histogram is right here along the 8th. This is 1/8 of the way across the histogram. And so that's as much as I'll do with the histogram transform function. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just move that guy up there. I'll now go into generalized hyperbolic stretch. And now what I'm going to do is some of this light filament stuff here, I want to bring that out, and I can stretch that piece of the histogram by using generalized hyperbolic stretch, which is why I use it this way. So again, others probably tell me that I can just stretch totally in generalized hyperbolic stretch, but I just find that it's much quicker and much faster to do the histogram transform, and I'm much happier with the results. The results that I get out of just using generalized hyperbolic stretch, I haven't been happy with it, so be that as it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here and get my symmetry point, and then I'm going to send my symmetry point to the app here. So you can see the value here is 0.136929, and the symmetry point is 0.136929, so you don't have to copy it over. And now we begin the stretch. And you can see the histogram is opening up, it's widening, it's getting wider, and that looks actually pretty darn good. I'm going to say yes to that. You can see you got this gorgeous filaments in here. Look at that, you got that structure right there. This is all really beautiful in there. And I don't think that we're blowing anything out there just yet. So let's see if we can get a little bit more of this. Send that symmetry point and just a tiny little bit of a stretch there. Yeah, I think we might start blowing out there. See, protect highlights, what does that do? Yeah, that protects the highlights a little bit and brings this, look at that, that filament is beautiful. So we're going to go ahead and apply that, and that's our hydrogen stretch. And let's take a look. So you can see it's really beautiful here. This looks pretty good. Yeah, a lot of good detail in there. I saw this down here. I hadn't seen this before. That's pretty interesting. And then of course this part of the flaming star is just really just beautiful. Look at all that swirling gas. All right, so that's hydrogen, and you saw how I did that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stretch oxygen and sulfur the same way. All right, so now that I've got these things stretched, what I usually like to do is I go into my curves and I just apply a general S curve just to get a little bit of contrast going on in there. So in this case here, let me go here, and I'm just going to drop this down and bring this guy up. Yeah, there we go. Good contrast. Boom. So that's sulfur. And I think that that's okay. Making sure I don't blow anything out. Okay, that looks good. So now it is time to run the script. Now you can see here that outputting RGB color, basic SHO will be the name of this new image, and you can see here that red is sulfur and green is hydrogen and blue is oxygen. Now I have other SHO. I've got an advanced SHO, which basically blue is oxygen, green is a mix of hydrogen and sulfur, and red is sulfur. There we go. And then I got contrasty, where you get a little bit of oxygen and sulfur and hydrogen, and it's all kind of mixed throughout. I find that for my purposes, generally speaking, basic SHO works pretty good. And so I'm just going to go ahead, because now you can see why I named these the way that I named them. So now we're just going to go ahead and execute. All right, here's our basic image, and we're done. Just kidding. Nice and green. So what we're going to do is we're going to run Bill Blanchin's modified SCNR version 5 script on this thing. Okay, so you can see the classical golds and the blues, but you can also see some purple in here, and purple means that there's green in there. If we go to the inverse, I'm going to go Control-I to invert this image. You'll see that there's still a fair amount of green. The green was just hidden in the purple, and so we're going to hit it again with modified SCNR. Now I'm going to hit Control-I, and there we go. We have a beautiful image here, and you can actually see that this is actually part of a gas cloud right there. That's pretty cool. All right, so now what do I want to do? Now that I've got this, I think one of the things that I want to do is I want to change and emphasize a little bit more of the blue. I want the blue to be a little bit darker, and so to do that I'm going to use a mask, and I've got a set of scripts over here, and they're scripts from Bill Blanchin. You can go out onto his website, come up here to resources, let me go updates, manage repositories, and here we are, PI scripts color mask. So I'm not sure if these ones are his or they come here. Color, yeah, they're this right here, which essentially does the same thing. You can basically open that up, and then you can hit, you know, you want blue, and you want a lightness mask or an achromance mask or a linear mask, and you can create a mask. But I've got these scripts here that I use, and it works just as well, so I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop that onto there. And you can see over here what the equation is, and it uses pixel math of all things, which most scripts up there use pixel math in the background. Okay, so there we are. So that's looking pretty good. We got a little bit of blue down in here, and there's generally blue throughout, and then we got blue right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit mask blur to blur a lot of this. There we go. And then I'm going to apply this mask. Boom. And let's go in and tweak. Mask. Show mask. There we are. So now we're going to go into curves transformation, and we're going to go to the blue, and let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it does to our image. You can see how it subtly, it's very, very subtle, but I kind of like it. It's nice and subtle. So let's go ahead and apply that. And then let's reset this, and let's go to hue. Let's go here. Let's go lab, and we're gonna come in here. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, and you can see that we got some of that blue coming out right in here. Look at that. That's pretty cool. You got some of that blue right in there in that H. Provides a little more contrast in there. So that's our image. Now, what I like to do is, because hydrogen is the most common thing in here, is that I like to use hydrogen as a luminosity mask. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to call this HLum. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my curves here, and I'm just going to brighten it just a tad, not too much. I don't want to overblow anything. There we go. I don't want to overblow anything. Just brighten things up a tad little bit. There we go. Okay. Close real-time preview. Now I'm going to use Noise Exterminator. And what's interesting is that when I apply the luminosity, it's going to smooth everything out. And it's going to use the underlying color as the color in these bright areas. But it's going to basically smooth, if you will, the image. So there we go. So let's bring this up here. Let's remove the mask. Forgot to remove the mask, the blue mask. So here we got the luminosity channel. So I'm just, see, is this too blown out? I might have to back off the brightness a little bit. How bright is it here? We'll have to take a look and see. I might have to redo this and just back off that brightness. In fact, let me just go ahead and just back it off. Yeah, let me try that and see what that does first. So minimize that. That's our luminosity. And you'll find that this is a process of elimination. You just try different things to see what works. And we're going to go HLum and chromatic noise reduction, and this will take a minute. Okay, so let's see if we've blown this out. I don't think so. No, I was afraid that this over here would get all blown out, but it's not. It's looking actually pretty decent. Okay. Wispy gas there, but you can see how smooth it looks. It's really smooth. So a little bit of color noise, but I can take care of that in Photoshop later. But that's looking pretty darn good. All right. So that is our basic SHO. So now let's deal with the stars. And we know that the blue has halos, but I'm going to show you what I do, and that is I'm going to work off of H as my criterion, meaning that I'm going to process my H stars, and then I'm going to try to match that processing for oxygen and sulfur, so that way not any particular one predominates. And to do that, it's going to be histogram transfer. Surprise, surprise, surprise. And we'll go here to H stars, and I'm going to cut off the screen transfer function, and then we're going to go here, and I want to look at basically this star right here, because this star is going to be my reference star right there, the star right there. That's going to be my reference star. And so here we are. So we're just going to go ahead and begin the stretch. And this goes pretty quick. And I'm keeping an eye on here. And I think that that's what I want. I'm going to keep this and going to I think that might be it. That's it. Okay. So that is my hydrogen. So here's my hydrogen stars, and this again is my reference star. That's the star that I'm working to matching. And so I'm just going to move this down here. And we're going to open up oxygen, because oxygen we know is a problematic one. You can see the halo there. So kill the stretch, and then we'll open up the real-time preview. And as I'm stretching, I'm really going to be matching this star right here with this star right here. I'm not going to be paying too much attention to this so much as I will be to this right here. So change this to oxygen stars. Okay, and now let's begin the stretch. So far so good. Okay. My water bottle is right next to my screen here, so if it looks like I don't know what I'm doing, it's because the water bottle's in the way. So I'm going to move this to there, and let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's probably too much. So let's back that off. Don't need the process console. Let's back that off. There we go. That's good. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing to sulfur. So I'll just speed through this part. You don't need to. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to combine stars. And to do that, I'm just going to go to each of these and just type underscore stars, because that's the name of the file that I'm going to combine. So I'm just going to copy this and then just paste it with each of these. And don't forget to paste down here with the image ID. And then we just execute it. And voila, we get stars. Now, you know that I had to do SCNR on this one, and you know that you're going to have to do SCNR on this one. I can already see magenta hints around some of these stars. So let's go ahead and we do the exact same process. We're going to hit this with modified SCNR, Control I to invert, hit it again, and then Control I to bring it back, and then we'll have good stars. Okay, we now have good stars. So now let's go ahead and let's combine the two images. So here's our HSO, and then here's our stars. To do that, I'm going to use the script here. This is just the basic script. You can find the script all over the internet. It's just how you combine images. In Pixel Math, you can use, I used to do like the name of, basic SHO plus basic SHO stars, but this seems to, I don't know, work better. So the first thing is a star image. So that's going to be basic HSO stars. And I'm going to copy the basic SHO, copy, and that's going to be my starless image. Boom. And the name of this thing, let's call this thing Malot 31. Yep. And color space is going to be RGB. And let's combine them and see what we get. All right, not bad, not bad at all. So you can see here that we really took care of that halo situation. There's you have to really blow it up to be able to see that there's a little bit of blue around there, but not really much. But everything looks really good. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, typically at this point, the last thing that I'll do is I'll do dark structure enhance, and that's because we got some dark gases here, or dust clouds, and it enhances those dark areas, and it just adds a little bit of extra pop. So I'm going to go here to Script, and I go to Utilities, and I go to Dark Structure Enhance. My target's automatically selected because it's open, and I just accept the defaults and then just run. And it runs fairly fast, and we'll see here how it does. It should do pretty good. And that's it. So you can see we got a little enhanced down here, and through here it enhanced a little bit, and then of course up over here it enhanced it a fair amount. Up here in the tadpoles, just so you can see the difference here, we'll go ahead and we'll undo the script, and you see it now. And I don't know if you can see it very well in YouTube land, but there's a pretty significant difference here on my screen here. So let's go down to here. Let's see what we get here. So let's undo the script. Yeah, see, you get less definition in here. Look right here in this area right here. So you got a little bit more definition along here, along this ridge right here, and right in here, a little bit more definition. So that's nice. All right, that's my processing process, if you will. That's how I process my images. So if you have any questions or comments, put them down below. Again, please remember, I am by no means, and I mean this sincerely, I am by no means a PixInsight expert. If you want expert advice on PixInsight, you need to really talk to people or go out and visit like AdamBlockStudios.com. Adam has a whole host of videos out there that you can learn from. Excellent guide. Some of the things that I've done, I've picked up from there, and I continue to go out there so that I can learn more, so that I can pick up more skills. And again, you know, it really is kind of a skills game. It really is about just getting your hands in there and just doing it. And so if you liked this video and thought it was helpful in any way, please go ahead and hit the like button. And if you feel so inclined, please go ahead and subscribe. And until next time, clear skies and happy guiding.